All right, then we'll go ahead and get moving. I don't know if I should make any predictions as to finish time tonight, but we'll go ahead and get started. So tonight we're October 27th, 2020 meeting of the Town of East Bridgewater Finance Committee. We are on a go-to meeting. However, we are being live streamed and the meeting will be rebroadcast as well. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting open at 7 p.m. And we really only have a couple agenda items for tonight, but they're big items. So we're going to quickly run, first we're going to run through the FY21 budget adjustments as we know them today. We'll see where we are. Next, we'll run through the warrant for the special town meeting. And then we'll just have a quick, little, somewhat brief conversation on FY22 budget planning. And that will pretty much it. So if I want to call an estimated time, I'm going to aim for 8 o'clock, no later. So we'll see how we do. All right, so let's go ahead and kick it off. We're going to discuss the FY21 budget adjustments. As everyone knows, or everyone should know. Oh, hey, Crystal. I see you there. And Joe, excellent. So the updated cherry sheets came out the other day. I think I mentioned that. I don't think I sent you guys my copy, but I think I did mention that it has come out. So with that and with all of the other timing issues that have now started to unfold since we're so late into the process, Brian now can give us an update on where we are from the revenue projections, and that basically will give us an overall sense, obviously, of what we're able to spend through the warrant articles. So Brian, you want to take it away?
Thank you. Well, first, the good news, they did certify our free cash at 3.4 million. So there is some joy of that. They did indeed adjust the cherry sheet numbers, and we took a hit. Not as bad as we thought it was going to be. We never panicked anyway, and we're still fine. They did make some adjustments. One of the things, as you recall, is we put no estimate into our budget for the meals tax revenue, because at the time you didn't know if it was going to pass town meeting or not, and you didn't know how long it would take to implement. They did want us to come up with an estimate of the revenue from the meals tax. We had originally projected non-COVID times that we would take in between 225 and 250,000, but with COVID time and not starting the collection of meals tax until October 1st, we put the estimate conservatively at 100,000. The Department of Revenue accepted that estimate. Consequently, we're basically held harmless. The revenue down versus the revenue now accumulating from meals tax has netted out. But they're very concerned because although we were conservative at estimating our local receipts, the Department of Revenue is slightly nervous. They're also nervous at the fact that overlay is not as high as it used to be. So they have asked us to reappropriate the transfer that we did for, I'm going to find whose microphone is doing that. They asked us to, thank you. They asked us to reappropriate 140,000. So we are going to go back and we're going to pull 100,000 of that, and we're going to transfer it to unforeseen. Laura, can you remember the name of the account and that was going to go into unforeseen revenue? So basically I have to reappropriate it into a non-appropriated account and hold it till the annual town meeting. At the special before the annual, we could reappropriate that money to OPEB as it originally was supposed to go, or we could transfer it to overlay if overlay needed the money, or we could transfer it back into the active budget should that our local receipts number not hold up. I think we were relatively conservative in the way that we did local receipts. I am not concerned, but the first test on local receipts is going to be November 1st, for the tax payment, and we'll see how many people don't pay their taxes. Now, as you recall, the last 2 tax days that we had, there was both a CARES Act check to everybody and also an extra $600 in unemployment for those who weren't working. So our collections for our previous tax periods were exceptionally good, but now it's November 1st for that payment, and none of those extra revenue sources exist. So I think it's going to be a nice reality check to see what's coming in revenue on November 1st. The interesting thing is that the CoreLogic check, which is the consolidator of bank escrow funds, delivered a check that is quite normal yesterday for over $3 million. So there is no indication that those people who are escrowing their money are short. So at the moment, that's pretty good. So go ahead, Joe.
Just a quick question. So you mentioned that the tax collections were good. Can you give a budget versus actual number? Is it like 5%
Not
off,
yet.
5% ahead?
In the last 2 tax periods, we were 0.12% off.
Okay,
That is
so
actually
that's around
better. That's actually better than what it is normally, non-COVID. So go figure. The real test really, Joe, as I say, it's got to be November 1st.
Sure.
And when I know, what comes in on November 1st, I've asked Melissa to run some numbers. How much came in CoreLogic last time? How much was delinquent versus, or who, because we could run histories. Did Joe, ever miss a tax payment? And if Joe misses a tax payment, it's exceptional. Those are the things we want to know. There's always our frequent flyers. I'm expecting those.
Right.
What I'm not expecting is any new names, if that makes sense. And that will be that's going to be our check on whether we're going to have an issue on revenue. Still,
But safe to say, bottom line, no impact to local revenues from COVID to date. Fair statement?
actually, we've had an impact. Our revenues are up.
What's the impact? The impacts are up.
Our building permit
no
numbers,
negative impact.
no negative impact, but our building permit numbers are up. All the restaurants have paid their liquor licenses. Our first meals tax revenue will come in December, and we'll then know whether my 100,000 is low. I think it's low, but we'll see what happens. The 2 Dunkin' Donuts alone are over 70,000 by my calculations, and they, according to the newspaper today, they are not bad. So let's see what happens.
Excellent.
So at the moment, knock wood, and I will send you a copy of the finished reconciliation sheet so you can all see the tax recap and where we are. And the problem that you have is when you look at the finance committee sheets that we put together forever ago, and the projections, you see some reality numbers are coming in, but we're not there yet. I mean, we don't know what after only 4 months, I'm not going to tell you what local receipts are going to do. Can't tell you what excise tax is going to do. Those are the things that we'll need to keep an eyeball on as we go forward. At the moment, knock wood, I think we're okay for FY21. The real test is going to be FY22 because, I don't see that the state can keep bailing us out all the time. So, and by the way, just to give you, switching gears, if I may, Madam Chairman, give you a report on the CARES Act money. Rebecca
Absolutely.
gave me an updated report today. We have polished off $2,022,094.75. We have $62,000 remaining, which I'm going to just not brag about because gosh knows what could happen between now and December. But we have polished off over $2 million. 1.477 went to the schools. The rest was used by the town side. So
So Brian, you had given me, I assume the one you are reading as an updated one. So I had
Yeah.
just sent the committee out, the one you had sent me before. And the one thing I was going to note to the committee, because I did throw some percentages in my email, is that we had a bunch of invoices in the DPW that had yet to be broken out because they were for
That's what
multiple
we did.
departments. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming, great, that so the school number is now the 1.47.
The school
So
number
I
is
did,
broken up.
yeah.
The DPW did shift some spending into Council on Aging, the town, the selectmen's account, et cetera. But we really were interested in, what we spent in school.
So 1.4. So at 63% was my calculation. It's obviously got to be higher at that point. So
Correct.
we'll see what the good. Okay. All right. While we're on CARES Act money, does anybody have any questions? I know I just sent the spreadsheet out, so please don't feel like, you can ask
Laura, you
questions
made
later.
a point today when I was talking about this, about the fact that, of course, the schools would have the greatest share because they serve the greatest number. So I'm not making any aspersions. I'm actually just reporting numbers. And since we're
Yeah.
recorded and this is going to go out eventually on cable, I want to make sure that I'm clear that I'm not disparaging anybody. They spent well, they spent wisely. There's been no waste.
And I know the conversation has already started with the school committee, especially that, they have a tremendous amount of expenses due to COVID that don't look like they're going away anytime soon. And this CARES Act money only funds through December 31st, and the conversation's already starting at the school committee and school level about what happens after December 31st. And of course, we're hopeful that there'll be more funding, but that's something that we need to be aware of also, is that, everybody needs to keep all your fingers crossed that more funding does come our way.
Can I just ask a quick question? That remaining 62,000, is any of that dedicated towards the election or any kind of precautions for the election?
We have indeed spent money from the CARES Act for the election. And if you were like, for example, we did cleaning supplies, we did masks, we did the social distancing signs and things on the floor. Rebecca?
Sue, the town clerk does have about 8,000 reserved for specifically the election.
Thank you.
I'd like to say that you guys are doing the early voting really, really good. I voted last Saturday and it's great, and it's
It was a
best
breeze.
that could be. It's really
Well,
good. So congratulations on
Sue
that.
Gill-
Whoever's running it, it's good stuff.
I'm not taking any credit. That's all Sue Gilpatrick and her team. And let me tell you, they are knocking it out of the park.
Mhm.
Totally agree, man. It's great stuff.
I mean,
the more people vote,
I'm
the
up
better
at
off
the
we
town.
are.
Yeah, I'm up at the town hall parking lot every day, dropping my son off and picking him up, and there's a steady stream of people coming in and out constantly. So it's been great. Good. Okay. Well, I know the numbers side of things on the revenue. Brian and I keep talking about it to death. And the hard part is that it's in flux, and we're in such an odd position being this far into the year and having so much really still up in the air. But as I said today to him, I said, it's all snapshots. It was a snapshot back in, God, I don't even know, it was the March or April when we did it, which is normally when we do it. So, to have yet another snapshot now isn't our norm, but it's today, this is the snapshot. So I guess that's where we, and as to Brian's point is, next week it's going to be a different snapshot. Hopefully just never a worse snapshot. So that being said, any questions relative to the update on the revenue side that Brian gave? I think there'll be more to come, but today it's what we have. Okay,
Yes.
and I think to his point is, we not that we went unscathed, but we're in relatively good shape. I did. Who else was doing? Crystal, were you doing the annual town finance committee conference as well as me?
Yep.
Did you do
Yeah.
it last week? So if you
I did.
heard, actually, it was a fabulous presentation too. They're already starting to have the conversations and the same thoughts. And again, I feel like maybe we're a little chicken little, but I think we're all, smart enough to know that this can't turn out awesome. This isn't going to be great forever. So they're already having those thoughts that, okay, they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I think 22 is going to be where they see that drop. So they're already starting to, again, have those conversations. But all right, so if that is good, I know I did send out tonight an updated warrant, and they, not that you had to print it out, it just had one new article in it that's a non-spending article, so we don't even have to vote on it. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go through the warrant now and just kind of run through, and we'll vote on the articles we need to vote on. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring up the article, accept a motion on it, a motion and a second, and then we'll do our discussion. And we'll do discussion on each article, and then we'll vote.
Can I just ask one question kind of on the,
Yep.
what's going on in the town? So Brian, quick question, like the revenues are okay. Has there been any noticeable uptick in town service, usage of town services? Like
Yes.
police, fire, I mean, obviously the school's a school, but have you guys seen any, COVID, there's more ambulance
Yeah.
runs or anything like that?
In the beginning of the pandemic, the ambulance runs fell off.
Really?
Now they've resumed, they've resumed to normal. So back in March, April, we saw a decrease in calling the ambulance. In addition, but that ended sort of quickly. The usage of our water bills are up. And so water usage is up, and that's logical. People are
More
home.
people at home, right? People at home,
Yeah, the police have been very busy, and when we have Paul in for his budget talk, the number of calls that they're answering per police officer are significantly higher. So that's been used. DPW is going as normal. They're very busy because of this time of year, getting ready and finishing up and still mowing lawns and things of that nature. And I'll tell you, I've never seen anybody work harder right now than Brian Kiley in the facilities, because all of the changes in the buildings, particularly in the school building, and of course early on in town hall, we dumped on Brian. So and he's been extremely busy. So and by the way, at the same time, he's maintained his maintenance schedule, his renovation schedule. For example, the conservation office is currently being renovated, and so is the veteran services officers. So in addition to taking all the other stuff on, especially for the opening of school, he's still doing the normal stuff.
Nice.
So we are
Let's keep
well served.
Give them that extra 62,000 then, huh?
So I can't hear you. I'm muting you now.
Thanks, I just
By
wanted
the
to
way,
understand this. Sounds like you
talking about other people, the Board of Health has been, all the contact tracing, all the phone calls. The overtime number is staggering, and I don't even think she puts in for the real number. She took her computer home, and during the football game, she's working. She had to call 35 people over the weekend. So, I got to tell you, people complain about civil servants. We are getting our money's worth and more.
Good.
We are well
Good to hear.
served.
Yep, excellent. Thanks, Brian.
All right. So I will leave it up to you guys. Do you guys want me to pull the warrant up and put it up on the screen, or do you want to just look at your own? What do you want to do? Do you want to look at your own screens, or have me pull it up? I'm happy
I
to.
have mine up.
I have mine up too.
I think it's fine if you don't, but if you want to, we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody's got it up, does anybody need me to put it up, or are we all good?
No, I'm looking at mine.
Okay, good, excellent. Okay, then we'll just go through it then and do it that way. Okay, so we'll just jump right in and we'll go to Article 1.
Might be helpful for the people at home to see it if they're going to be looking at it. I don't know.
The warrant's
Yeah.
only in draft mode at the moment.
It's only in draft, so we're voting, so I'm fine. I'll read I'm not going to read every article. I was thinking I might just read, all right, I might just read the motion for each one. Okay, so Article 1, article provides for payment of bills incurred for a fiscal year. We
Move
have,
to approve Article 1, the amount of $270.
so that was Kevin making motion. Anyone second?
I'll second it.
For the sake, only because it's a little wonky on a go-to meeting, want to do it the way we did it last time. Kevin and Melanie, can I just have you guys both? Kevin, you make the motion, Melanie, you second. It just
Sure.
might make it a little more streamlined for us,
Yep.
if you don't mind.
Better for my note keeping too.
Yeah, I'm always thinking of you. Okay. So this article is a little bit more, pretty much a housekeeping article. One bill that was happened on the last day and was not received until after. So one bill in the amount of $270. So pretty much a normal housekeeping accounting. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, great. All those in favor, say aye. Aye, or you can just
Aye.
raise your hand too. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? I think I got all the ayes. Perfect. All right.
We have, everyone's here, all 7, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
7, yep. Perfect.
Magnificent 7.
Yes.
Look at
Okay, Article 2. So actually, we spoke about this article, well, actually not in an article form. We spoke about the need for the feasibility study for the sewer system at our last meeting. So we said we were going to try and do funding. So basically, on the December 12th, 2017 meeting, we appropriated funds extending the sewer to the high school up to the intersection of Spring Street. The project was completed and a balance remains in the account of $21,687.23, which could properly be repurposed for the funding of the above described feasibility study. I'll entertain a motion.
Move
I
the,
just have one question on that.
Hold on
is
one
the
second.
amount-
Hold on one second, Joe. Let me just make sure we
Okay.
get a motion in a second first.
Sure.
So
yeah.
Kevin, motion.
move recommendation of approval as print of the article as printed.
And I'll second it.
Perfect, thank you. Open any discussion. Go ahead, Joe.
So I just had a question. Is the amount that's available going to be equal to the amount that the feasibility study costs, or is it close, or?
No,
It's
the
darn
feasibility,
close. Yeah.
no, the feasibility study is $29,900. So we're gonna move 21,687, and then John's got a line for technical services that he can
Oh, he'll
use.
pop that in.
It'll pop that in, and we told him that if he ran short in that line as a result of that transfer, that we would back him up.
Great, thanks. That's all. I just was curious as to how that was going to get resolved. So cool.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Any abstains? No. Motion passes. Okay, Article 3. Hold on, flipping pages.
I changed the
so this is-
wording on this article. As you
Okay,
said,
that's,
the wording on this article has changed, and I can read this to you, so it's a little different. To see if the town will amend Article 15 of the annual town meeting held on June 23rd, 2020, by reducing the transfer from account number 1-910-3969-5187 overlay surplus to the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund from $140,000 to $40,000, and to transfer $100,000 from account number 910-369-5187 overlay surplus to account number 103203220. And here's, I love this account name, extra and unforeseen fund balance,
there you
to
go.
adjust the FY21 budget or to take any action thereof.
I think the wording makes sense.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to recommend approval of Article 3 as presented by the town manager administrator.
And I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
So this is what you were saying the DOR is recommending we do. Okay.
It's belts and suspenders, but I liked it, actually. I think it was a very good suggestion.
Doesn't hurt.
And then to the point we discussed earlier, in the event we don't, we can also always
Always move it back.
then
It's-
reappropriate it back to go.
The best way to describe it is it's reserved for appropriation in the future.
Right.
Perfect. Great. Any additional discussion? I almost forgot to vote. Great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain. No, I got everybody. Motion passes. Great. Okay, Article 4, to see if the town will transfer from available funds or otherwise provide a sum of money to reinstall the fiber optic cable removal and reinstallation from the fire department to the high school, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to recommend Article 4 in the amount of $25,000.
And I'll second that.
Perfect, thank you. All right, for discussion.
I have a
Anybody
question.
that's
So,
driven up Route 18.
right,
Yeah.
so, well, why wasn't this included? This cost was incurred because of the construction. Why was it not included in the construction budget?
Well, the state's construction budget wouldn't cover moving our fiber. So
Why?
we're responsible for our own fiber.
Why is that? If they severed it, why wouldn't they?
Well, they
fix
didn't sever it yet. But we have to move it because it's in the way. It's our fiber, just like the phone company has to move their wires and the electric company has to move their wires. We have to move ours.
it? Okay. Cool, thanks.
Any other discussion?
And Tim assures me that he'll bring it in for less than 25,000.
So, I'll go dig a ditch for 25 grand.
Well, there's plenty of ditches out there already.
That's right.
Timeline on completion over there.
I heard, don't hold your breath.
Oh, it's a disaster.
Great. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay, Article 5, to see if the town will transfer from available funds or otherwise provide a sum of money for road repairs or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. I will entertain a motion.
Move to recommend approval of Article 5 in the amount of $350,000.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? So as you saw in my notes that I sent out earlier, this is our normal road repair capital item, which we originally had recommended at 500,000. We passed over at town meeting and we're now looking to recommend at 350,000.
Yeah, why is the reduction?
Well,
Why
we
are we
can't,
reducing?
because we have another town meeting in the spring, so that would cover the summer. Why appropriate money we're not going to be able to spend this fast?
Because asphalt's cheap right now.
Yeah, but there's only so many jobs we can do before it starts to snow. So,
Ah, all right, good point. Okay, so it'll come back in the spring?
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
thank
the
you.
asphalt plant's closed December 15th, so
Can you not pre-buy?
John has chapter 90 funds that he can use in the meanwhile, and this 350, which should carry us through till we get to the annual town meeting or the special town meeting, and we can appropriate more money at that time.
Excellent, thanks.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, Article 6, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds or otherwise provide a sum of money for the move and rehabilitation of the DPW offices or take any other action therein or relation thereto, or in relation thereto. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to recommend approval of Article 6 in the amount of $50,000.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
That was unanimous. MSVU, motion passes. Okay, Article 7, says that capital, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds or otherwise provide the sums recommended or any other sum or sums for the capital outlay for the town departments as set forth in the following schedule. 3 items, 2 police cruisers under the police department for $115,355. School department, Mitchell School Auditorium Lighting System, $53,257. And under IT, video surveillance project in the amount of $84,441 for a total of $253,053. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to recommend approval of Article 7 in the amount of 253,053.
And second that?
Okay, any discussion?
Is there any
For no-
particular reason all 3 are tied together?
So basically, we voted the capital package as a whole, and then at town meeting, we passed over several items for cost savings. So these are 3 of the 4 that we passed over. These are just the remaining ones. The one project, another project we passed over that is not here is the central school sewer, which from a timing perspective, we just wouldn't do now anyway at this time of year. So these are just basically the remaining 3 capital articles we passed over as part of the plan. Go ahead,
Right,
Joe.
question for Brian, does this take care of the police now? I mean, you said they're getting more calls. Do they, is this bare bones, or can we just
I
get
need
them all
the-
the cruisers they need and like get them happy,
We need 2 cruisers now, and we're going to be back to you for additional vehicles in the annual town meeting. Because we have, somewhere in our past, we didn't replace vehicles in accordance with a plan. We
Yeah.
now have a plan, and we now look at the car's mileage, the age of the car, and the idle time. And then we recommend a replacement, especially when we're looking at costs of repairing the vehicle. When they become excessive, we want to get rid of that vehicle. It's too early to tell right at the moment. I haven't looked at the new numbers. We did get a break. One of the cruisers was in for a rather expensive repair, but it was covered under warranty. So after the chief complained, so that may change what he might need in the spring. But I will tell you this: I probably definitely should have bought one cruiser at the annual town meeting and postponed the other one, because we've had nothing but aggravation. So I got to tell you, Paul has not complained, but I know every time he looks at me, he wants to run me over with one of the cruisers. So
So is it safe to say we're playing catch up?
we're playing catch up. We're
Right,
playing.
but are we gonna get to a point where it's like, we gotta buy 3 cruisers a year and forever and just deal with it? Is that the idea?
I think the answer is it's going to be 2 and/or
whatever it
cruisers
is.
a year forever.
Yeah.
And as you remember, Joe, when the chief came in, the old chief came in and talked about the vehicle replacement schedule. He now has a schedule, and he can give you hours, mileage, maintenance costs. Perfect. And that's what you want to see as a finance committee, that, the money is being properly spent, and that we keep our maintenance bills down.
Okay, just want to understand. So it's probably 2 cruisers a year till foreseeable future, unless something
Yeah,
crazy.
we used to replace 2 a year, and then we held back, and then all of a sudden we had 6 old cruisers. So it's good to have a plan, let me tell you.
Yep, and good to put batteries in the calculator when they're
And
running.
now that he's collecting the statistics and the data on it much more thoroughly than they had before, again, now we should be able to project out 5 to 10 years as well, as he gets caught up.
Well, I mean, it is what it is, right?
I'm looking for,
about a-
Joe, I'm looking for my
cruiser, yeah.
electric police cruiser.
Yeah,
We're
2
gonna have
cruisers a year.
electric cars.
All right, any additional discussion on Article 7? Nope, seeing none, I'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Kevin, MSPU, thank you. All right. Article 8, to see if the town will transfer from available funds or otherwise provide a sum of money for electrical improvements and upgrades for the town facilities or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. I will entertain a motion.
Move to recommend approval of Article 8 in the amount of $100,000.
And I'll second it.
Okay, for discussion, as I mentioned in my notes, this is the article that we previously looked at and recommended in the amount of $400,000. Due to current circumstances as they are, we've reduced it down to 100,000. Brian, do you want to add anything?
Sure, I'm going to answer Joe's question. I can only spend $100,000 between now and the annual town meeting, and we're going to do some electrical upgrades in the over to LED in the high school on the first floor, and that's $100,000. It has a payback period. We are meeting with the company, with the electric company and the contractor on Thursday. So that's going to be hopefully done over the Christmas vacation when the building is empty. And then we won't be able to do anything more on electrical savings for two reasons. One, I really want to get into green communities and take their money and do it. And two, I can't get into the building that use the most electricity until the summer.
So that's good info. That was not my question. My question on this one was, what's the contract? No, but you think that you understand everything. But is there any contractual obligations you have to enter into a contract with National Grid, or is this just kind of a ad hoc, like let's work together and do some savings, or what is the paperwork around this arrangement?
In order to, yeah, this is actually, we pay up front the 100,000, we get it back over time. 3 years is the payback period on this project. And so what happens is we don't see it in the bill because we're putting 100 grand down. So, but my payback is a little slower, 3 years.
But is that in writing somewhere, or is that just?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Just wanted to understand that. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Any other discussion?
It's not a cash payback, right? It's a reduction in cost because of the efficiency.
Correct. That's why, David, I want the Green Communities grant, because then I'm laying out the grant money and not our money. Does that make sense? I know it's all our money, but you know,
That makes total sense,
source
yeah.
of the funds comes in as the grant for Green Communities. And that's its intended goal, is to reduce our electricity usage by 20% over 3 years. That would be a huge savings to us.
It's huge, yeah. It's
The
good
Green
for the environment.
Communities, we tried to do that a little while ago, right?
I don't know, I don't have the history on that. Do you?
I believe we tried to do it and it got voted down because there is a fee to the taxpayer for it, right? If some contribution.
That was the Community Preservation Act.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right, okay.
There's actually a savings if this, first of all, the stretch code, which we'll get to when we get to it, only applies to new construction, not remodels, not adding an addition onto your house, but new construction. They have to adopt the stretch code. And as part of that, you get a HERS rating on the house for energy efficiency. And as you may or may not know, many people are looking for a HERS rating on a brand new house because it rates the energy savings that they can expect over the course of their ownership. So where it adds slightly to the price of a new home, it gets that payback period because of the savings.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, any additional discussion? Great, seeing none. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Perfect. That must be you. Motion passed. Okay, Article 9, to see if the town will vote to rescind the sum of $200,000 of the authorization to borrow $520,000 voted in Article 5 of the special town meeting of December 12, 2016, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to recommend approval of Article 9 as printed.
I'll second that.
Perfect. So this is, again, I don't think this is a repeat. This is new, right, Brian?
This is basically housekeeping. We're
Yeah,
cleaning up
just-
some old borrowing.
We just don't need to borrow as much.
Correct. But the most
Any other
logical question is, I can't remember what Article 5 was in December of 16, so I'm gonna have to look that up because somebody's gonna ask me.
I was just gonna ask you.
I don't know, Dave, you were here in
Come on, Dave, you should know.
Tell me, what is it?
The Wayback Machine must have.
They probably have a book here somewhere.
This came from bond council. They always check all the bond things, and they have a couple of articles they want us to pass in this warrant. This was one of them.
Perfect. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Dave, you yay?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion passed. Okay.
Was that when the school wanted to buy those vans that time?
Ah.
I wonder. Well, it'll
He's
be interesting.
literally trying to come up with it.
I tried to
That was
block
before my time. That was before my time, so no.
All right, Article 10, it's a long one. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $1,070,606 to pay costs in construction and reconstructing water mains, and for the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and to meet this appropriation, the treasurer will, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to borrow said amount under MGL Chapter 44, Section 8, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. Any premium received upon the sale of the bond or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with GL Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such cost by like amount or to take any other action relative thereon and in relation thereto. I'll entertain a motion.
To recommend Article 10 in the amount of 1070606.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I want the motion from the finance committee to be up to $1,070,000.
Move to
Okay,
recommend
so-
approval of the article in the amount of up to 1070606.
Thank you, Kevin.
You are welcome, sir.
And I will second that.
Great. Any discussion? Brian, do you
So-
want to give a two quick?
What's significant about that number?
Well, that is the estimate that we have from the engineers for the work that we have to do on the water mains. And we have some hydrants that need to go in, et cetera, et cetera. So all of these are system improvements and fixing some pipes that have narrowed over many years. And that was the estimate from the engineers. So we're getting ready to borrow.
We discussed all this. This is the Maple Ave project, right?
Yeah, and technically, we already voted this, so this is one we passed, and so technically, we don't need to vote it, but for the sake of easy housekeeping, I'm just gonna run through all of them. I don't think it matters, but we did already vote to move forward on this one, and we just passed on it on annual town meeting. So any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Again?
Aye again?
Aye.
Reaffirming what we already said once. Okay. Okay, another bond. Okay, to see if the town will, okay, Article 11, we're on. To see if the town will vote to supplement each prior vote of the town that authorizes the borrowing of money to pay costs of capital projects to provide that in accordance with GL Chapter 44, Section 20, the premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds and notes thereunder, less any such premium, am I reading the right one? Yep. Less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of bonds or notes may be applied to project costs and the amount of authorized. Very similar wording, okay, just making sure. Of the amount authorized to be borrowed for each such project shall be reduced by the amount of any such premium so applied, or to take any other action relative thereon or in relation thereto. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to recommend approval of Article 11 as written.
And I will second it.
Okay, and I think I put in notes, Brian, this one is basically just to take those premiums
Actually,
and
this
roll
is
them.
We're taking advantage of a change in the law that allows the town meeting to, instead of going back on each individual bond and reappropriating the bond premium, that this money would be taken back by the town for use on future capital projects. So like projects. So it will be available for appropriation, still requiring a town meeting vote, but it would be available for appropriation as an accumulation as opposed to each individual one.
So does that get swept into a special account?
Yes.
And we could say like, oh, the bond extra account is,
Correct. And it would be
5,000,
available for capital projects.
and then people could.
But like projects.
Correct. Well, any capital purchase,
Capital, like building roads, right?
construction, police cruisers, it would, but it, again, would have to be it's a source of funding, but it would still have to be voted by town meeting.
Good.
It's not Brian's slush fund.
Correct. We don't have slush funds.
Rainy day.
Only in the winter.
Well, interesting enough, by a vote of town meeting, it could be put into stabilization if
Brian's slush funds.
if it got too big. So,
Any additional discussion? Great, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion pass. MSB.
Just to note that $520,000 project, the sewer line through the center of town.
thank you.
You're good, Dave. You're good.
Anytime. We'll just.
I'm impressed with your filing system.
It's not my memory, tell you that much.
Mine's a pile on the floor right now. All right. Okay, Article 12, we do not,
Okay, that's the new one.
but we don't need to vote it. So, but if you want to go through it, we can.
There's an article that was put on the warrant at the request of the selectmen, who will talk about it on Monday evening, to move the date of the annual town election to after town meeting and not before. So that you don't have take for example, this last election, we elected Peter on the 11th of April and he was at town meeting on the 11th of May with 4 weeks to come up to speed on everything on the warrant. And although it didn't happen in this particular case, we could be handing a warrant article to a selectman who got elected opposing that warrant article. So we're going to have the team take the leadership right through town meeting, and then it would move the town election to the Saturday after town meeting.
And if town meeting gets moved till June?
No, we're actually putting it to the second Monday. It says the election of town officials and other matters to be determined by ballot shall take place on the first Saturday following the second Monday in May. So as you know, this year we had to move town meeting and we moved the town election. So let's hope that we don't have to do this for another 100 years.
Let's hope.
But I think Dave's question was,
The answer is it would follow the town meeting because it says the second Monday in May. So in other words, it would be the first Saturday following the second Monday in May. The second Monday in May.
if you did have to move town meeting, it would stay
Correct.
the same, right?
Sorry? You'd have to move, if you follow the rules this year that the governor laid out for the moving of town elections and the moving of town meetings, that would require a vote of the Board of Selectmen in extraordinary time, like we just went through, to move the town meeting and the date of the election. And they would be two separate votes.
Okay.
Please, let's not prolong this.
Yeah.
I don't want to
So
go
that
through this next May.
Well, this is good because you don't have to put your signs out in the snow.
Yeah.
You get extra month.
Yep.
Good point, Dave.
So the idea is to keep the town meeting in May, ideally.
Keep the town meeting, the town meeting by bylaw, the town meeting is the second Monday in May. And
There
now
hasn't
we're
been that
moving,
for the last few years. It's been in June.
yeah, we're supposed to be doing it second Monday in May. And if
Okay.
assuming no pandemics, Crystal, I'm sorry, Melanie, I couldn't she was speaking just then. I'm looking at Crystal talking to Melanie.
It was
Um,
Crystal.
Crystal.
Focus,
Okay,
Brian.
all right. Her mic was off. I'm thinking, okay, I goofed. In any event, let's hope
There's
that we
kids,
can be
there's
with-
kids in that side of my screen, so
Okay.
I have to mute it.
I want to see if we can, no COVID, no plague. I'd like to see if we could get back to a regular schedule.
Sounds good.
So that's going to be tough for us, Crystal, because that means the regular schedule is much earlier than we're now used to.
Well, I'm like, why are you putting that pressure on me? I don't know what we did to you, but all right.
I'd like to follow the rules of your road.
Yes.
All right, so that was Article 12. Again, Article 13, we do not need to vote on. I don't even know if we need to go through it. Was that a Passover article, or is that a new one?
No, this is a new article.
It is new.
The
Okay.
Conservation Commission is just cleaning up some language to make it conform with other language in other parts of the code.
So we don't have to do anything there.
Nope.
We can table this for a second, but while it's in my head, I was just curious how the election, not the auction went of the land over on the Hanson, in that Tri-Town area. I meant
Yeah,
to
where's my
ask
check?
that.
Well, we haven't had the closing yet for the big piece
No.
of property. We had the little piece of property. The closing hopefully will be before, I think the date that they have to do it by is November 2nd. And it would bring in 2 million. But before you all get too happy, we would have to pay off the receivable and the costs of the auction, the cost of the closing and the lawyer's fees. And then whatever's left would go into the general fund. So don't get too happy.
Can we
If
send
you
checks
see-
out to the townspeople to get rid of the money?
No, if you see any money from this, well, see, the problem is you got the receivable to knock off. So if you do see any money come in the shape of free cash in September of FY22.
Takes
So
that
you-
long to close a deal, huh?
No, it's that long to have the money flow through the system, because remember, you get the money, it's going to have to be certified as being available for appropriation. They won't
Oh,
certify
right,
that
yeah.
until next September.
State government, yeah.
And it won't be $2 million because we'll have those things netted against it.
Right.
Mhm.
But at least it's sold, so that's good.
Yep.
What is the transaction cost? About 10, 15%?
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you. I will get that number for you. I was told, I just don't remember it. It was
Yeah.
pretty good.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I'd be interested in learning that.
I'd really like to give you, in fact, perhaps when the transaction's complete, I can give you the settlement sheet that tells you how much we really were able to say, to get back.
Yeah,
Um,
that'd be great.
So,
I thought you were gonna say
Yeah, I
piece
think-
of land.
Well, I think it's important because I think the general perception, Joe, to the point that you were asking is when's the check coming, that they think it's going to be this massive, huge windfall, right? And it isn't always.
essentially, over the years, we created a receivable for the taxes we should have gotten, and the state allowed us to appropriate that money in our spending. Now that money has to go back to dissolve the receivable. So on the books, it's not 2 million.
So you already
right.
spent the tax money that never got paid.
Yeah, correct. That's a good way to say it, Joe. I'm going to remember that. Okay.
I'll pay you tomorrow for a hamburger today. or something like
Yeah.
that. I don't know if anybody's even old enough to get that. All
Thank you,
right.
Wimpy. We were, some of us remember that.
Okay,
In
okay.
black and white.
Thank you. All right, so that was 13, 14. We also do not need to vote, but I don't know if anybody feels the need to discuss the strict energy code. Brian, do you want to give a 2-second on it?
This is the stretch code that I mentioned earlier. It makes new construction comply to a set of rules that make the homes that the builder builds now more energy efficient in conformity with state law. And this will make a selling point because they'll have a HERS rating on and it also gets us into the green community family, and we've become eligible for energy savings grants in the Green Community Program. The Green Community Program helps the community move to a 20% reduction in electrical use. This is very important to me. I need this.
And it's good.
You got it.
So, Brian, you had said earlier that it did not include additions and modifications, but this
Correct.
says it does.
Where do you see that? Did I write something wrong here?
Well, like in about the fourth line after code 780 CMR, including future additions.
That's referencing the code.
Okay, the word additions is ED, not A. So that refers to additions of the code, not additions to the
okay.
home.
Deepest crow. Okay, never mind.
You
I
had me
wasted on my
worried
brain
there.
power on the sewer line, so don't worry about it.
That was a good one, though. Come on. All right. Article 15 is the sale of the Gladys Farron Cottage, which again, we do not need to vote on. I think we've all discussed that one pretty much to death. So
We just
I
have the
don't
town
think-
bonfire there this year.
Yeah, right.
Too much asbestos.
We could,
Yeah.
We try not to speak ill of it.
Yes.
That might be back.
It will be a sad sale, but still. All right, so that's 15. So Article 16. So I'm gonna, Kevin, I'll feed you the dollar amount when we're ready for the motion.
Other than 872673.
Yep, perfect, yep. So Article 16, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds or otherwise provide a certain sum of money to be added to the Capital Stabilization Fund as established in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to recommend approval of Article 16 in the amount of 872673.
and I will second it.
Okay, for discussion. Brian, you want to take this one? We'll just
Sure.
talk about a plan.
If you turn to the spending plan, the last page, we have $3.4 million, I'm rounding, in free cash. We want to not expend $1 million so it's available for the annual town meeting or special town meeting in the spring. That leaves the balance of 2.4, of which I'm splitting the 872 between capital stabilization and general stabilization. At Laura's suggestion, I am reforming the capital stabilization number to show you how short we are in the stabilization account. But I felt that it was important to step money into stabilization at this point, so it would be available should we require its use to balance the budget in FY22.
How short are we from having our 5-year commitment in the capital stabilization fund?
Right at the moment, I just started that project today, but at the moment I'd say we're probably closer to 2.6 years instead of 5. But I want to come back. I want to take that on, take it with a grain of salt until I come back to you with a spreadsheet that shows you.
Well, being that short on it, you're either gonna pay the piper today or pay the piper tomorrow.
Well, we've been very like last year, we were self-sufficient on the capital. We didn't go in and use the money. And if we could do that for a little while, we could save it. But I'd like to beg you for the moment, let's put this discussion off to the next meeting so I can actually present you facts and not what I think right at the moment. But it's a very good suggestion.
Yeah, but I think it's safe to say we need to put something in there to start getting back to where we need to be.
Yeah, I agree 100%. But the approach between this and the stabilization fund, I don't know. I'd like to see the numbers before I voted on this. I agree something has to go in there, And my gut's telling me it probably has to be more than that to be at 2.6 years when we're intended to be in there at 5 years.
But I'm not confident enough in that number to tell you that I'm correct. So wait till I give you the spread.
So I'd like to, I personally would like to see it myself, what it is when you calculate it out. I mean, it was great that we didn't go into capital this year, but are we gonna get back into, we just talked about having a great plan to replace 2 cruisers every year. And we'll buy 2, but then we'll wait 5 more years. If, we've gotta make sure that capital stabilization fund is doing what it's supposed to do, because that's how we sold it to the community.
Mhm.
And because we got so far behind on capital 10 years ago or whatever, it was pathetic. And I think we need to be very cautious in this area.
When were we last at 5 years? Like, when did we last have 5 years? Or we,
You had 5 years, 2.5 years ago.
okay. And now is this different than the debt payments, or is there,
It's capital purchases, but not including the school bond, the building of the high school.
now, because don't we have 5 years of debt reserves as well? Or is that,
No,
That's
this is what we're
That's
talking.
what we're talking about.
Okay.
And it's
I
shy.
thought we still were at 5, okay.
But before you all, take my number for its gospel, wait till I give you the spreadsheet.
Right, no, I understand.
Good idea.
But I think the direct answer to the question, Dave, is that we're going to need to put some money into stabilization, because if we need to go into stabilization, come the operating budget adoption, because of what I feel FY22 could look like, we have to create a source of funds to do that. Whether it be, and I know that whether it be capital stabilization or general stabilization, if you got to run a school system, you're going to have to find that money.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I said today, I was talking to somebody, I said, I think 21 is going to be pretty stable right now, and 22 is the year we're going to have to be concerned about.
I think that
But at the same time, I just want people to be cognizant of, we may have to make some tough decisions in 22, and to let the capital slide again after all the work the capital committee's done and everybody's done, and what we did with this fund, I think it will warrant some discussion. But I agree, we need to see what your numbers are. If you came back and said we got 3.5 years, it's going to be a whole little bit of a different conversation than 2.5 years.
right. I agree. Please give me a couple of more days to get that done.
And I think,
And
Dave,
I'll
I
tell
think
you
we're
what.
all on the same, I think
Yeah,
we're all on the same page. And I think this is an absolute effort to kind of satisfy both things, to put some away, knowing that next year is going to be a very, very tough year. But at the same time, putting some in capital stabilization to make sure that we're really looking out for the long term as well.
Yeah.
We're not creating a worse scenario.
Maybe I'll pay $1.08 instead of $1.07 for my coffee at Cumberland Farms. I know it went up from $1.06, so.
But I mean, the cost of capital is like as low as it's probably ever going to be. You
Well,
need to go borrow it, isn't it?
That's why we're refinancing some of our notes.
Right. So, I mean, if we need capital, it's not hard to go and get interest rates really, really, really low as they've ever been. So what's the concern?
What you need to be conscious of when we do this is we're a $60 million organization. Our whole debt is important to know. So I need to give you how much we have in capital debt, how much we're paying out every month in capital debt, and then you have to add in the school debt after that, because that still counts against us as in our debt ratio. So let's find out what our total indebtedness is, what our payments is, and what we do have in capital stabilization as a part of, because that's, we're going for re-rating of our bond, and this is part of that project to make sure that we're projecting our debt properly. And I've had a great experience with not only working with Melissa, but with Hilltop, who does our bonding. And we got some great advice about refinancing. I don't know if you tuned into the Board of Selectmen. We're refinancing the school note, and we're going to save $4 million.
Yeah, it's not rocket science. These are the lowest interest rates there's ever been in like the
Right.
last 50 years. So why not use them?
We remember
Refinance everything.
last town meeting, we passed a ban 3,000. We renewed that ban until July 15th of next year. And we got an interest rate of 0.775 and a $3,000 premium.
Yeah. It's
So
like free money.
Virtually,
Why not borrow
yes.
Don't put it in the
Yes.
bank, borrow it. Don't put it in the bank at all.
So Brian, the debt relief that comes off every year, what is that? Is that rolling into free cash now when it gets certified?
There's no, because you're just reducing your indebtedness, and the payments are still being done because we have other stuff coming on. So remember, what they had done up until last annual town meeting was they would buy, borrow, and then pay back borrowing from the free cash number. So just didn't make any sense to do it that way. You borrowed money and then you use the free cash to put it back into capital stabilization. You should have just, and what we did last year was, instead of borrowing, we just paid for it. So it seemed a little strange to me that you would borrow and then put the money that you would have put to buy the thing into or 5 years worth of payments into capital stabilization. It didn't make much sense to me. So what we want to do certainly is make sure that we have enough money to pay our debt and have it in reserve. So the debt sinking fund, if you will, Crystal, so that, if we really get hard pressed, we have a place to take payments from. But
Right. So
as
the
our,
way you're tackling, and we were able to tackle some of the capital this year, was that debt relief we had, instead of having it roll over, that's where that money came from.
correct.
Okay. So do we have a target, or do you have a listing for the next 5 or 6 years as to what that debt relief is over the course of the next 4 or 5 years?
I have it for the next 20 years.
Okay. My 20 years ran out. Mine only went till 2020, so my charge. Well, that was all calculated into when we did the stabilization fund. So just knowing how it's being used is helpful. So for us, that would be very helpful when you give us that number to see where we really stand.
I think it's very important for you to know exactly what's in the capital payment plan, how much we're paying per month, and when things roll out, so we know when we should finance something versus pay for it.
And this is also a great opportunity, once Brian gets this sheet created and worked on, it's also a great opportunity to look at what policies might be needed. So again, we always have had this kind of informal policy, Dave, through all of these years of how we did it. It's probably a great opportunity to formalize it.
Well, it'd be good if we could make, and this is the start of a new year, so I don't know, make some sort of a dashboard, right? That this committee could look at, like you said, Brian, and say like, hey, we're at 65% of borrowing capacity, whatever it is, and that goes up and down. But this crew could look at it as a dashboard and see it move month to month,
Well,
something like
yeah,
that.
I mean, my goal would be, we decide what the formula is for what we want in capital stabilization. And then I needed some policies from the board about what we want to have in stabilization generally.
Right.
So in other words, using capital, the rules of capital, and then the rules of general stabilization. What is the percentage of the operating budget that you want to see in reserves, assuming normal times?
Exactly. That would be great.
Okay.
Any further discussion? No? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was
This number is pending to change once we get these other numbers, right?
Let me wait till we get the spreadsheet, then I'll talk to Laura and she'll communicate with you guys and see what you want to do, if you want to change anything. We have some time. We're not taking this to press until December 3rd or 4th.
We have a
November
little bit.
3rd
We have a
or
little
4th.
bit of time. So
Yeah.
if we wind up having to have some quick conversations and we wind up having to pull a meeting together next week, it would probably have to be next week. So probably towards the end of the week, but
Why? For December 3rd, it's gotta go to print.
Did
Yeah, I
Brian
mean,
just
we
say?
probably have to do it on, I mean, I could stall it a day, no problem. So probably if we're gonna do a meeting, it would be either Tuesday or Wednesday night.
Right, but it would be good going forward if we can get the numbers straight before we ask to vote. I think that's Dave's point and mine as well.
Just to also give you some, you can always change these numbers at town meeting.
We don't want to do that.
Okay.
okay. Moving on, last article number 17, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds or otherwise provide a certain sum of money to be added to the general stabilization fund as established in accordance with provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, or take any other action thereon in relation thereto. I will entertain a motion.
Move to recommend approval of Article 17 in the amount of 872,673.
And I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? I think we already had it. Perfect. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Everyone, okay, MSB. Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll, that wraps up the warrant, and once Brian and I connect next week on that, I will provide everybody an update, and then we'll make a quick make a quick decision on if we need to take any further action. All right.
Good.
All right. We missed 8 o'clock. Damn it.
Not bad, though, not bad.
That's good. Nice.
I know, but you know. All
My
right.
computer
Real quick.
battery's running low.
All right, FY22 budget planning. So Brian and I mostly have been talking about all of the 21 stuff that we still have going on, but we don't want to lose sight of 22. Brian, I think you told me that you wanted to think about getting a letter out to the departments right after Thanksgiving. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Let's not ruin their Thanksgiving, but
Yeah.
I would
Give a
like to
little
have a serious discussion, where you want to go, what you want to do, and what message we want to send to the departments so they can start their budget, and then ask for the budgets to be in, sometime around the end of December, and then we can start deliberation right out of the chute in January. It's gonna be a very busy January through May.
So buckle your seats, here we go. So we'll continue to work on that schedule. And then we'll probably start scheduling our regular meetings, probably pretty much going forward from here on out. So we'll probably start to think about maybe an every 2-week schedules. Give or take, holidays or whatnot, but we'll start thinking about that. So I'll maybe put out a survey to kind of just throw some dates out and we'll get started on that. The other part of this equation is our department liaisons and our meetings that we typically start having. The timing of this is going to be a little tough because if we don't get the letter out to the departments until after Thanksgiving, it doesn't give us a very large window for getting our meetings done with our departments. But is what it is. So we kind of held off on the conversation. I mean, I know I've talked to at least 1 or 2 of you. I think those 2 folks had told me that they were fairly comfortable with their liaison appointments. I did a quick count of liaisons. Is there anybody that would like to make some changes or is open to changes? Or are we perfectly happy with status quo?
Don't do whatever you want.
Yeah, but happy to do whatever the.
Let me ask, is there anybody that would be interested in taking on a different department just for educational purposes? Because I always think that, it's great to kind of do a deep dive. But if everybody's happy with where we are, the only thing I might ask, and Dan, I can take this offline with you, is I have 4 currently. And you're at 2. I might ask if you might be willing to take one of mine.
Yeah, that's fine.
But you and I can talk offline about that. But so everybody else is fine leaving it status quo?
Sure.
Okay, so once we finalize that, I'll update it. We'll include this list with maybe the department head letter that goes out, so they have all of the information, just to remind everybody, you know, and I'll send you guys the list, obviously, once we get it finalized by like next week or the week after, just to remind everybody, it does have our emails and our cell phone numbers on it, just so they'll all have that. I just want to remind everyone. I don't think it's a big deal. That was pretty much it for tonight, I think, unless there's anything else I've missed that anybody wanted to bring up. But I think we'll probably, you know, I feel a little awkward because I feel like we have some serious overlap between 21 and 22 happening. But it is what it is.
You're usually done with the previous year by now.
Yeah. Yeah. I keep saying I keep waiting for a normal year and I'm not getting it. So.
That's no fun.
right.
Normal's no fun.
Well, every once in a while, it's okay.
I'm good with
Well, if
that.
we have nothing else, then we can go ahead and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Make motion.
I'll second.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm assuming no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, good night, everyone.
night.
Thank you.
You.